Good morning, how you doing? I am live and I'm a bit late as well. I said 10:30, but it's closer to 10:40. Hope you're well. It's been a mad week for me and Caroline, the future Mrs. Allen, and everything else. We've been moving. I spent a whole week preparing to move and kind of moved in officially to our new house yesterday. So we're here, which is great. And now we have 1,500,000 boxes to unpack and arrange around the house. So I said I would just pop in to give an update as to what's going on. I did put an article on the website to say that I'd be away for a week and a bit maybe. We'll see how that pans out. The next thing to do now is to reconstruct the studio, which of course is a real studio, but it's based not in an office. It's based here as it was in my previous home. So it needs to be reconnected now and recalibrated. And it's going to take probably a day and a bit. And my great friend and yours, Paul Ripley from Fab Radio, will be doing that with me, I think, on Tuesday. So all going well, we might even have a live radio show on Wednesday of next week, at the very latest on Thursday. So there you go. So it's been fairly stress-free moving. Nobody wants to move. It's a bit of a nightmare, really, isn't it? Who wants to move? I can see live chat there, by the way, coming in there. So how are you all doing there? Ray Tillman and Gail and Sharon and Ian and Triplets and Stephen the Ghost and Cameron and Julie Walters. Yeah, so there you go. One of the things I've not been able to do very much in the last few days is even see a news bulletin, let alone read a newspaper. I know that the forthcoming election, which is next Thursday, isn't it? The 23rd, the European Union election, the parliamentary elections, is getting an awful lot of coverage. I know that without even having read a paper, listened to a radio show, or watched a TV show. And I know that people have a lot of mixed feelings about that. And I've been reading, just this morning was the first time I really had a look at the Twitter feed for the program. And I know people are really pissed off and are caught between two minds about going to vote next Thursday and voting for a Leave party. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, what's the effing point? Surely the Leave parties would refuse to participate in any European Union parliamentary election on a point of principle. The principle being, we shouldn't be taking part in these elections 3 years almost. I mean, it'll be 3 years in about 4 weeks, 5 weeks since. I can't believe how long ago, how quick the time has gone since then. I remember talking on the eve of that referendum on June 23rd, 2016. I remember doing a program, the regular Richie Allen Show. And I remember saying, we'll never be allowed to leave the European Union. Therefore, the vote will probably be Remain. It's what I thought at the time. And of course, I was wrong. I'm always wrong. Right? The reason I was wrong for good reasons. I thought, well, they won't allow it. They'll fix the vote. So they didn't. And 52% of the 17 point whatever million people, I mean, it was way more than 7. What was it? Closer to 19 million people voted. What's wrong with me? It was far more than that, wasn't it? 17.4 million voted to leave. That's right, yeah. It was nearly 40 million people turned out to vote. It was over 70% turnout, which is a record. General elections, you're lucky if you get 51, 52% turnout. We had over 70% turnout and 52% voted to leave. I got that wrong. I see Graham Booth is in there. Graham from Trigger Warning. Are you looking forward to having Tommy Robinson as an MEP, says Graham. Well, he'll be your MEP too, Graham. No, because he'll be in jail, won't he? Tommy the Tit, won't he? Oh, talk about triggering people, eh? Graham Booth, Trigger Warning. Watch the comments now. Tommy is good. You should support Tommy. Tommy's a... I've not been watching the news, but I know that he will be going to court again for contempt of court. And look, I'd be very surprised if Robinson was to win a seat. And I say that you've only got to look at the miserable turnout for these rallies, these hilarious rallies that he's held. He had one in Blackpool where there was less than 100 people, you know. And I have a lot of sympathy for those people. I know why those people are fed up. I know why they're pissed off. I know why they're angry. And I don't look down my nose at them. I understand why they gravitate towards moronic scumbags like Tommy Robinson. I understand it. And I don't blame them for it. I don't think I'm better than them. I understand it because I sympathize with them. I agree with them on 99% of the things they're angry about. But genuine scumbag, violent assholes like Tommy Robinson, who exploit things like the Rotherham and Rochdale grooming, things he never exposed, by the way, right? If you want to learn who exposed those things, listen to previous shows with people like Maggie Oliver and other people. What fascists like Robinson do, and it's not a cheap throwaway word for me, fascist. What they do is they exploit the situation like that. And they go and tell people who are really affected by it, who are distressed by it, oh, it's okay, listen to me, I'll look out for you. But ultimately, he's just National Front, English Defence League, violent scum. Their answer to everything ultimately boils down to violence. That's who these people are. And violence is not the answer. It's what the establishment wants. It's what the system wants. It's what the elite wants. It wants us to be violent. Why? Because then it will bring in even more draconian policing. It'll bring in the privatization of policing, which we're seeing already. It'll bring in militarily assisted policing. Right? That's your problem reaction solution right there. So they love it. They love Antifa, who are just as bad as Robinson's goons, by the way. Right? Antifa there, the far right goons there. That's where the system wants. And the rest of us totally bewildered. What's happening? What's going on? Oh, please protect us. Please protect us. I mean, you've seen the scum that's minding Tommy Robinson. An armed kidnapper, for fuck's sake. Give me a break. Right? Right? That's who you want representing you. Well, good luck to you. Stephen says, order out of chaos. Now, I interviewed the actor. I'm all over the place here. It might sound like I'm a bit mad. I'm not tripping. Never tripped in my life, apart from coming down the stairs a few times this week. So I do jump. When I'm excited, I jump from one thing to another. Isaac Kappy was on the program last year, and he's an actor. And he had some minor to semi-decent roles in various films. And let me get this right now. He came on because he'd been on Twitter and he'd been talking about child abuse, pedophilia in Hollywood. So I reached out to him. I didn't think he'd come on the program, but he did come on the program. And there were people he wanted to name. And I asked him off air not to name these people because these people they're alive and well. And they might sue. They might sue. Somebody called Stephen Guinness is saying perhaps the referendum was rigged in favour of Leave. No, not at all. Not at all. I think I've seen Stephen before on Facebook, on Twitter. Not a chance, Stephen. Stephen, I'm fed up with this nonsense, not just from you, but from other people. Centralisation of power is the agenda's agenda. It is the elite agenda to concentrate power into the hands of a tiny few people. And the way to do that is through political, fiscal, monetary is fiscal, and military unions. That's what it is. No, we will never leave the European Union, ever. And I said that before the referendum. I said it after the result. I'll say it again. That's been their agenda. Read the Nazi roots of the Brussels EU. Find out about these people. Go right back to the Treaty of Rome to understand what the agenda was from day one. I talked to you about jumping backwards and forwards. Anyway, I think Stephen has a blog. Put a link up to the blog, Stephen, so people can get your side of the story rather than listening to me all the time. Got to be fair about it. Back to Isaac Kappy. So he came on the program and he talked a little bit about his experience of sex abuse in Hollywood. Now, he'd already named very famous actors, hadn't he? An actor called Seth. What's his name? The comedian. See, I don't watch that many films, at least not popular films anyway. It's not Seth Rogen, is it? I don't know. So he named somebody. But he didn't name anybody on my program. Seth Green it was, thanks, Joshua, Seth Green. And I said, look, tell your story. And he told his story, and I did my job. I challenged him. I asked him what evidence did he have. And he said he was at a particular actor's house, and there was a secret room there. And he saw some things there that were very disturbing. I asked him, why didn't he go to the police? And it was a 25, 30-minute interview, back and forth. And I learned this week that he committed suicide. And that's a terrible thing for him and his family. So obviously, those who watch alternative media programs and listen to programs, radio programs like mine, are saying, oh, it's very suspicious. I don't know if it is or not. It might be very suspicious. And who knows? We could talk about a lot of people, you know, DNC staffers, people, doctors who've asked questions about not only vaccines, but about the efficacy of other medications. I think 2017 and 2018 were the 2 years where you had the most, you had an extraordinary amount of very unusual deaths, people dying, people who were getting some traction on the internet talking about medicine and other things as well. So I don't know. Wide Awake Radio is posting there as well. How you doing, Wide Awake Radio? Hi to Joshua. Hi to 8 Franks. And 8 Franks says, the Leave win was perfect for those in power. Look at the division it's caused. And maybe that's what Stephen Guinness means. And I'm open to that possibility. That while they never, ever, ever wanted us to leave the European Union, they might have fixed it to leave so that they could cause all this chaos and then we wouldn't leave anyway. If that's what Stephen is blogging, yeah, I'm open to that. But the idea that we're not meant, the idea that the elites want us to leave the European Union, no, I'm not buying that at all. But when have you ever known me to be arrogant and egocentric? What do I know? It's just my opinion. And you might have a different opinion, and I appreciate that. So yeah, look, this is a really ridiculous live stream, isn't it? Because I'm jumping around on a few things. And I didn't mean to talk about these issues anyway. I just wanted to talk about the move and to say I've moved, we've moved, we're here. I've got deliveries coming all day. So I'll be indoors waiting for those. There could be a knock on the door any minute. The studio will be constructed then. We've got a beautiful room for the studio on Tuesday. And it's going to be set up so that, not immediately, but shortly afterwards, it'll be available to watch on video and listen to on radio as well. So you'll be able to watch it and listen to it at the same time if you want to. Although, well, you'd want to watch this big baldy bollocks, I have no idea whatsoever. So there you go. Yeah, so a lot of people have died in mysterious circumstances. People who've talked about child abuse, people who've talked about healthcare, medicine, vaccines. And I think those 2 years, the 2017 and 2018, were massive years for people dying. Was Isaac Kappy bumped off? God love him. I have no idea. And I think it's foolish to say, yeah, and that's what the truth or industrial complex does. They're as bad as Tommy Robinson. They exploit these situations and they make claims that they can't substantiate. I can't claim that Isaac Kappy was murdered. I know he was talking about, and you know the thing about Isaac Kappy, when he was on with me, he came across as a very mild-mannered, very moderate type of guy. He didn't seem to be, you know, very extreme in his thoughts or in what he was saying. He came across as a regular guy, and I was happy to have him on the program. So, and he's dead, you know, and I didn't know him at all. I didn't know him. We spoke on the radio, and afterwards he sent me an email to say that he was happy that I left him on. I said, thanks for coming on. And as usual, with any guest, I said, look, if you have got anything to update us on in the future, come back. You know, the lines are always open, but I didn't hear from him since then. Somebody called Cesium 134137 is singing the Tommy Robinson song. Yeah. Stephen says the chat won't let him post web addresses. Search for Stephen Guinness WordPress on Google for anyone interested on why I believe the Leave vote was the intended outcome. Thanks, Stephen. I'll be on Twitter a bit later on. If I see a tweet from you with your blog on it, I'll retweet it and put it up there. And I'll tell you what I'll do, Stephen, as it's a contrary position to mine, next week when I'm back up and running, I'll find the relevant article and I'll put it on my website. There you are. Can't say fairer than that. Right? Yeah. You see, dissenting opinions are good. That's all. I lecture all the time on my radio show. Don't block or fall out with people who disagree with you. Embrace them. Do you know why? Because they might be right. And you might be wrong. Hi to Holly Beth, who says you can't write Goyim in the chat. You have to use a variation. I wonder why. Good stuff. So yeah, Joan Rivers is another one. Says we go Robbie. Joan Rivers. By the way, when I'm off air, which is now, check out triggerwarning.tv. Graham and Hayden put a lot of opinion pieces. What these are video opinion pieces. And that's all they are. And Graham and Hayden are just as full of shit as I am. But they've got some really interesting opinions on current affairs that you might get something out of, but you might not. But check them out, triggerwarning.tv. It carries the radio show as well. That's at triggerwarning.tv there. So yeah, so it's FA Cup final today. Watford against Manchester City. I've obviously got internet in the new house, but we've not got Sky TV yet. They were due to come yesterday and put it in. Don't you just hate dealing with Rupert fucking Murdoch, don't you? And Virgin are just as bad. That's your choice, really. You've got that bearded fucker who should have been killed 2,000 times in balloons, Richard Branson. Or you've got Rupert Murdoch, whose wife, Wendy Deng, ran off with Tony Blair. That's who you get your TV from. Two choices. Hi to Charlotte in Burnley, by the way. How you doing, Charlotte in Burnley? Hi to Saturn's Raindrops, the Beast. Tell you, the Beast. And Graham says, yeah, if you did agree with everything you heard on triggerwarning.tv, he'd be very worried. And the same goes for the RA show. John Smith says, can I loan you my BT Sport login for today? John, you're an angel. Thanks for the offer, mate. But John, there's so much to do in the house. We won't be seeing any TV today anyway, or tomorrow, mate. So we've got to get curtains and everything. People can see everything going on in our house from the outside. There's no curtains. This is the rear of the house. I'm in the conservatory, huh? Moved up in the world. We have a conservatory. I bet you're dead jealous now. I bet you think we've moved to Hale or somewhere like that. Fuck off. I wish. No chance. Hi to Dawn B. How you doing, Dawn? So we won't see much telly today, but that was lovely. Hi to Joe Carew. How you doing, Joe? Hi to John Paytas. How you doing, John? Who talks about health, not news. Erin Elizabeth. Yeah, she was on the program before, Erin. And hi to Fred Luce. Hi, Fred. Are you having David Icke on, Richie? Fred, David was on the show about 1,000 times. And you know that just around about a year and a half ago, I decided to take the program completely solo for reasons, because the brand was very confusing. The brand. It sounds arseholes, doesn't it? But people didn't understand that my program is made by me and me alone. I make it. I stream it. Excuse me. I produce it. I edit it. And I broadcast it live 5 days a week. And I know I've done a bit of this on the radio show to try and explain to you the enormous amount of work that goes into it. If I was doing the Richie Allen Show in commercial radio, I would have 3 people working on a show with me. There would be 4 people on the program. There would be an editor, a producer, and a researcher. That's true, by the way. Now, I spend about 14 to 16 hours a day on the program because in the very early AM, I've got to gather all the material for the program. Bing Bong has sent me a nice compliment, but he's sworn in it. So I've got to unhide it. I've unhidden your sweary comment. Yeah, so I get up, I spend hours getting it ready. That's reading all the papers, listening to the programs, editing, getting sound bites, getting audio, booking guests. And then I do it live. Then after I do it live, I've got to get it online, got to get it on YouTube. It's extraordinarily difficult. I do it, me. And people didn't understand that. And when it was streaming on davidicke.com, and my relationship with David was very quid pro quo. I was as good for David as David was for me because I drew a lot of people to his website. And David was great for me because David is massive. He's a worldwide phenomenal. He's known the world over, and to be associated with him very early on was a boon, a gift, and I was delighted. But it worked both ways. And but the problem was, too many people, when you'd meet them at events, or when you'd hear from people, they'd say, "Why do I need to support the Richie Allen Show? Sure, it's on David Icke. It's belonged to David Icke. Surely David is paying you." No. No, my arrangement with David was a friendly relationship. Richie, I'll stream the program for you. And, you promote davidicke.com. And I'll give David even more credit. He didn't even insist on me promoting davidicke.com. But I felt I had to promote davidicke.com. One, because davidicke.com is a very valuable website. There's always a lot of very interesting and very important information on there. But it confused people. So I decided that I would go solo. And that's what I did back in, it was Christmas 18 months ago, wasn't it? 14, 15 months ago. And I think when you part company like that with people, you just part company. And that's that, really. I've not been in much contact with David since, and that's okay. I've mentioned him a few times on the program. I was disgusted to learn that he wasn't allowed to go to Australia. I was disgusted to learn that his new film was kicked out of some theaters. It's fucking disgusting. I will always support what David Icke wants to do, which is educate people about what's going on in the world. And I never fell out with the man. We've never had a falling out. There was never an argument between David Icke and myself, never. But I think there might have been a bit of soreness at me going solo, maybe. There might have been. I don't know. But there was no falling out ever. And not that it would be anybody's business. It would be nobody's business if there was any falling out between me and anybody. But there wasn't. I'm still in touch with David's sons, Gareth and Jamie. It's just that David and I don't communicate, really. And that's the way it is. But I support the man, and if the man ever wanted to come back on the show, he'd be welcome back on. Why wouldn't he be? But there you are. Joshua says, you've explained it. People need to drop it. People probably saw us as a bit of a partnership, but we were never a partnership because David is a researcher and a writer. I'm a presenter who gives a platform to people like him. Guys like him are very clever, very smart people. They go and they find stuff out and they put it out there. And what I do is give them a platform. I've never been a researcher. Yeah, I research my guests to understand what it is they're going to talk about before I have them on. But I'm not out there researching, traveling around the world, talking about. I can't do that, right? It's not my bag. It's not my thing. So for the absolute final time, I never fell out with David, and he never fell out with me. But we've just not been in touch at all, really, since I took the program solo. But there's no hard feelings, not from me, and I'd like to think there's no hard feelings from him. I support what the man tries to do, and would always be there to promote anything that would be of interest to him and his team to promote. So that's the end of that. So there you go. There you are. So, and I'm disgusted that they went to Los Angeles, I believe, and had a theatre booked to show a film that they made, and they were kicked out. This is disgusting. These are disgusting times. They are dreadfully dangerous times. That people can't book a theatre to show a film without Zionist groups complaining and telling lies about people. We had it here in Manchester 2.5 years ago when I spent hours with Paul Ripley from Fab Radio when David was kicked out of Old Trafford. And Paul Ripley and myself, but mostly Paul, found a venue at the last minute. It's disgusting that this is the world we live in, but you've got to ask why. Gary tweets, David Icke's job is to get you contemplating your navel, says Gary. No, I think his job is to get you questioning what you see in the media and what you're told at schools and universities. I think that's his job, to be fair to him. Anne Murphy tweets, Richie, people need to research covert narcissists. Am I a covert narcissist, Anne? You're asking me, am I? I wouldn't have thought so. We've all got an ego, haven't we? I think we've all got an ego. Right. Anyway, look, that was my ridiculously boring live chat today. I'm glad I was able to do it, though. I'm going to leave you alone now. We've got loads to do. And we've got, Anne says she doesn't think I am one. I suppose the person to ask that is the future Mrs. Allen. She'll tell you. She'll give you the goods, the lowdown. Right. Wide Awake Radio says, Rich, since you are an historian, consider implementing a segment on your show, either fortnightly or monthly, where you do a book review. Take a cue from Jake Morphonius, where we send you books. Yeah. But you know, that's an interesting one, Wide Awake Radio. Who's got, Google Wide Awake Radio as well, by the way. I'm happy to review books. Or if somebody has put a book out, if somebody has written a book and it suits the independent, the alternative media, in terms of the subject matter, I'm happy to give it a push. You know, I'm happy to do stuff like that. You know, I'm not going to be asking for money. I'll do it. If the book is worthwhile and if the book is good, I'll do it, you know. Apparently, they closed the theatre in Los Angeles only a couple of hours before the movie was due to start, which was probably strategic to make it more difficult for them to find an alternate venue. And they're a shower of bastards, these people. And what you're talking about is hardcore Zionists. This is not Jewish people. It's not Jewish people. My accountant is Jewish. The people who have been most helpful to me in Manchester with the Richie Allen Show are Jewish people. They couldn't give a fuck about... And one of them is an avid reader of David Icke's books. A guy called Stephen. Graham Booth will know who he is. Has read David's books. He's a Jewish lad. This is not about Judaism or Jewish people. They want you to think that, you see. You see them on Twitter all the time going after Gilad Atzmon. It's got fuck all to do with Jews. It's got nothing to do with identitarians or anything. John Smith says, like, banning the Sex Pistols. That's good. Show. Somebody is asking me, do I support Gemma O'Doherty? Gemma's been on my program many times. I don't support anybody. I gave Gemma a platform. I'm interested in her ideas, but I don't support anybody. Independent journalists, you get it? I endorse nobody. When you hear me talking with Gemma O'Doherty, and there are things that we have common ground on, there are other things that Gemma O'Doherty talks about that I don't agree with, that I flatly do not agree with. But I endorse forever her right to her opinion to say whatever it is she wants to say. And she can say it on my program. But it's very important that people understand I do not support or endorse any content creator. Support's a very dangerous word. No, I don't. I do not. I support free media. I support the right for every man and woman to go online, to make something like this and to say what it is they feel, how they think the world is, without being banned. So I like people like Gemma, I like people like James Corbett and others, but I don't support them. Jesus, that's a dangerous word. No, and I wouldn't expect them to support me. Never. But platform, yes. Come on my program, yes. Argue with me. I love an argument. I loved having on that lovely man, Professor Jones, Professor E. Jones, the other night, who I disagree with on so much. It was great having him on. Graham, I told you before, you said it yourself, don't have the child in the room when I'm on the air, because I've got Irish Tourette syndrome. I will drop the F-bomb every now and then. See how tired I am? I can't remember. E. Michael Jones, that's it. E. Michael Jones was on the program with me. I love that, you know, and you're going to hear more of that on the radio show. More people coming on with me that think that I'm a radical socialist and they totally disagree. Brilliant. Let's bring it on, you know. And you can have a conversation. You can have a bit of crack and you'll part friends. I mean, I've always loved speaking to people like my great mate, the anarcho-capitalist, Jeff Berwick. You know, they utterly reject the way I see the world, but they're delighted to have the argument, to have the conversation, and long may it continue. Anne says we should support in God. She says you can't trust people, sadly. I don't know about that, Anne. You can trust people, but I think when you're in the danger of, I think when you're in the business of being a presenter, having a program, having a platform, you can't pigeonhole yourself. You can't nail your colours to any mast. You know, I think Hayden Hewitt does that very well. Talk to anybody. will argue with anybody. Really good, I've always found really good presenters will challenge even the people they agree with. And I certainly don't want to be bragging now, but I've been doing this a long time in commercial and national radio as well. You want to be asking questions of the people that you agree with. You want to be asking questions of yourself and your own opinions. It's as simple as that. So I've asked James Corbett to come on, and James is in Tokyo, so there's a problem. Graham is asking, what's socialism? Socialism is Salvador Allende. Socialism is Simon Bolivar. Socialism is Hugo Chavez. And don't go to Wikipedia to read about Salvador Allende. Look at what he did in Chile and how that worked and how it didn't result in middle income earners and higher income earners getting robbed. That's what Fox News wants you to believe. That's what Sky News wants you to believe. That's what conservatives want you to believe. They want you to believe that socialism is taking money away from people who earn it and giving it to a bunch of lazy bastards. It isn't, and it never was. It's one of the greatest, I can't say the word myths. It's a myth. Please educate yourself about socialism. Real socialism has only ever been tried in a tiny handful of places in the world. And what happened then? What happened then after it started to work? Economic sanctions and CIA overthrow of governments. That's what happens. Because socialism will work. And it doesn't mean stealing from hard-working Peter to give to Paul, who's a lazy arse bastard who does nothing. That's not socialism. When Allende took over in Chile, he didn't start taking money off people who had money. I'm sick of talking about this. Jeremy Corbyn is a social democrat. You could call him a left social democrat. He's not a socialist. Fucking liar. And I love his brother Piers. Piers is a socialist. And Piers is a former Labour councillor. He's a real socialist. Jeremy is not. You see, what Jeremy Corbyn will do is they will form the next government. If they do, they might not. But if they do, they might form a government. It might be a coalition. It might be a Lib Dem, maybe even Lib Dem stroke Green Party, because the Greens are going to do better next time. And Labour. So you might have a rainbow coalition with Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister. They talk about this investment bank, but they still have to borrow to capitalise it. They're going to issue millions of government bonds, and they're going to put more and more debt on the books. They're going to fill the red side of the ledger in order to pay for their programs of government. Now, the amazing thing about that is, for a while, it's going to suit the worst off. It's going to look like they're doing a bit better because they'll come in, McDonnell and Corbyn, and they'll get rid of these hearings. I'm tired now. My mind is in a fog. They'll stop people having to go and beg, people with disabilities, people who genuinely can't work, who've got to go to benefit hearings and all of that. They'll make it look like in the short term that people are a bit better off. But the problem is, you see, they'll borrow to do all that. They'll borrow from private banks, fractional reserve banking, debt that never existed. That debt then will go on to, as I said, it'll go on to the public. It'll go on to the public expenditure accounts. They will be in for a few years. Next time they come in, it'll be a right-leaning government, and then you'll have even more austerity. You see, a real socialist will tell you that you shouldn't be borrowing at interest from private central banks to fund your program of government. Listen to Stephen. I'm so tired. Listen to Steve Keane, the economist, who's been on my program a couple of times. He admitted to me on the program, I caught him out. He said, why would Richie, I'm not referring to myself in the third person now, why would you borrow from the bank of Richie to pay for whatever? Why would you do that? Why would you borrow from your own bank at interest to pay for building roads, building hospitals, building schools? Why would you do that? Why? Jeremy Corbyn will never talk about that. John McDonnell will never talk about that. This is the key to the whole conspiracy. Why borrow from your own bank? And they'll never talk about that. And they will take people out of poverty on a relatively minor scale early on, and it looked like, oh, great, austerity is ending. No. Because later on, it'll be a tidal wave of austerity. Because they won't be in government forever. Remember last time you had a Labour government? Remember what David Cameron said? Aidan says here you can't logically borrow from yourself. Remember what David Cameron said? Remember what George Osborne said? They left a note in the Treasury to say there's no money. There's nothing. Because that's how it works. That's how it works. You come in as the new government and you've got to find a way to pay for the programs, your government manifesto. Oh, how do we do that? Oh, we got to borrow from the Bank of England. But they don't just borrow from the Bank of England. They issue government bonds, which are picked up by the Bank of England, which are picked up by pension funds, and which are picked up by private citizens. You see what's wrong with it? I've explained this a billion times. Because when you're issuing these government bonds as another way of borrowing money, and ultimately the debt grows and grows and grows and grows. And what is the remedy for the debt? The remedy is austerity, higher taxation for everybody, get more people off of social welfare, people who need it. But worse again is the privatization of public assets, like the Royal Mail, right? Like the prisons, like the NHS, like policing, like everything else. This is what's happening. Hi to Jennifer Garcia. I'm not doing a great job this morning, Jennifer, because I'm knackered. I'm absolutely cream crackered. But you understand fractional reserve banking. A bank loans money out of thin air. It doesn't exist. There is no risk to the bank. It loans it, it creates new money, which it creates at interest. So it gives it to you at an interest. It's created the principal, but it's not created the interest. Therefore, the total sum can never be paid back, ever, because there's never enough money, meaning debt grows and grows and grows and grows, and then the debt must be satisfied. How do we do that? Bingo. We got to take the water, we got to take the power companies, we got to take the transport companies, we got to take fucking everything. That's what they do. And that's at every level. Every level. And when somebody like Jeremy Corbyn says, when he's running to be the leader of the Labour Party, when he talks about that and says, I'm going to take back control of banking in this country. We'll take back total control of the money supply in this country. And we will build 1 million houses. And that's how we will generate money and generate real wealth. How do we generate real wealth? We'll build 1 million houses. How do we pay for that? We will pay for it. We'll create the money. Oh, you're just going to drive inflation up and you're just going to flood the... That's what the fucking banks do. It's the same thing. So the banks won't do it. We'll do it. And we'll have more control over it. And we're not putting a debt on the public that can never be paid. See, we'll pay for 1 million houses to be built. And we'll pay fairly and we'll pay well. And those 1 million houses being built by hundreds of thousands of workers, those people will spend money in those communities. A rising tide lifts all ships. That's if you take control of the money supply. But when you don't have control of the money supply, and you must pay for your manifesto by borrowing it from banks, from pension funds and private individuals, well, you're going to be in debt forever and ever and ever and ever. But again, read The $1 Trillion Conspiracy by Jim Marrs. Read any of David Icke's books going back about the system of finance, fractional reserve banking. This is how it works, right? And these banks at the very top are controlled by a tiny, tiny group of people. That's where the real power lies. Amschel Rothschild did say it. I don't care which puppet you put on the throne of England. Couldn't care less. Give me control of the money supply, then I control everything. It's why I don't vote. It's why I don't believe in parliamentary democracy. It doesn't exist. None of these people that you vote for will ever get you out of the shit. The first thing they do, excuse me for spitting, say it, don't spray it, Richie. First thing they do when they get to Parliament is they swear an oath of allegiance to the Queen and all her heirs. They don't do that, they are not allowed in. They can't take their seat, they can't give a speech if they don't swear allegiance to the Queen. Well, what about you? You voted for him. What about swearing a vote of allegiance to your constituents? I swear by Almighty God. Graham is at the St. Tommy will save us. What about I swear by Almighty God that I will do the absolute best I can for my constituents, for my neighbours. And I am beholden only to my neighbours, not to special interest groups, not to private businessmen and women who give me money, not to private companies who donate to me. No, I am beholden only to my constituents. But that's not the way it works. Right, 42 minutes later, I've got work to do, so I'm going to love you and leave you. Sorry for rabbiting on there. Hi to Anne Tonic from Austria, and hi to Martin Kelly, and hi to AU Kekovic as well. Right, so look, I'll update you on Monday. How about that? It's Saturday now, isn't it? It's Saturday. I'll update you on Monday, and we'll have a quick word on Monday. We'll have a look at maybe look at the papers on Monday. And then on Tuesday, Paul will be here putting the studio together. So fingers crossed. We've got no issues with power or with cabling or anything like that. Fingers crossed we'll get it done on Tuesday. And we'll be up and running on Wednesday with the Richie Allen Show at 5. Hi to Aidan Gregg. How you doing, Aidan? Right, I'm out of here. Have a great weekend. If you're a football fan, enjoy the FA Cup final today. Come on, Watford. And City at 5 p.m. I won't see it. I'll be too busy. Bye for now. Bye.